Hello YouTube! Today I'm gonna tell you the story of how I broke my leg. Okay, maybe that's not a great intro. The story goes, I was climbing and I was working on a V4 problem at this new gym and it was an hour away from my house. I almost flashed this bouldering problem. And for people who don't climb, flashing means you do it in one go and it's like a bigger deal than like doing it on your fourth go. And so I really wanted to do this. I really wanted that flash. I had one move to go to finish the problem and get to the top. But it was just like inches out of reach. And feeling frustrated, I was like, F it, I'm just gonna jump for it. Which like, I don't think it was supposed to be a dyno problem because the hold was just so bad. It was like the sloper and there was like no good place to like put your hands, and I could tell from looking at it and I was like, I'm probably not gonna make this, but whatever. And like stupidly, I just like went for it and obviously did not make it. I grabbed the hold and I like slipped off and I flung into the air. As soon as I was like flung out, I was like, I'm gonna land really bad and this is gonna hurt. And I was just like flying at an angle and I landed on my right foot, like all my weight plus all that momentum, just like, and I like heard it snap. And I felt so much pain and I instantly knew that it was broken. I had friends there and they like rushed over. They called for the gym staff and the gym staff called 911 and called for an ambulance. I wasn't even crying. I was cursing mostly, like F my life. The gym staff brought some ice and I was just like trying to put some pressure without making it hurt. And I was just telling everyone like, I know it's broken, I know it's broken. I wasn't crying mostly because I was just so much in pain to the point where I couldn't cry. Like I was just so focused on managing that pain. The ambulance finally came. They asked me how my pain was on a scale of 1 to 10 and I was like, it's 100. And then they were like, do you need morphine? I was like, give it to me right now. And they like injected it in the IV. This was all happening in the gym. They put like a splint around my foot immediately to like stop the swelling. And then they put me on a stretcher, which hurt so bad because they had to like move my whole body, which moving my leg at that point was just so painful. And they got me on the stretcher and rolled me out. I was put in the ambulance by myself and they gave me more morphine. It was helping a little bit, I could tell. I was getting a little high, but other than that, the pain was just so much that I was just like, give me more. And they gave me half the maximum amount. At that point, I was like crying so much. It's gonna be so long until I can like even walk again. I had just come back to like kind of the peak of where I was at in climbing before quarantine hit. Because when quarantine hit, all the gyms closed down and I'm mostly a gym climber, so I wasn't climbing basically at all throughout COVID. And finally the gyms reopened and I like came back and I was basically like starting over skill wise. I had finally gotten to a point where I was like, wow, I can continue improving from where I was at pre-COVID. And I was getting really excited to train, getting really excited to like get good. And then I fucking do this. So I was really upset and I was crying, but also simultaneously making jokes because that's how I cope with everything. And I was like, oh my God, is this how painful giving birth is? And the person who was driving the ambulance, she was like, LOL, like no. Giving birth is gonna be so much worse. And I was like, F this, I'm never giving birth. Like, I'm never giving birth. I got to the hospital. The radiologist is not supposed to give like any diagnoses, but I asked her, I was like, do you think I'm gonna need surgery? She looked at the x-ray and she was like, don't tell anyone I said this, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna need surgery. They gave me some prescriptions for some painkillers, and then they basically told me to go find a orthopedic specialist near my area because I was, again, pretty far from my house. And then they sent me home. My friend was able to come see me in the hospital because she was there, and she contacted my partner who like drove over, but they didn't let him in to see me because of COVID. They only allowed one visitor at a time, like for the day. So only my friend was able to see me. They gave me crutches, but I was like so high and afraid I was gonna fall over, so she wheeled me out of the hospital, and my partner drove me home. But I was so nauseous. The morphine makes you really nauseous. I already am like very prone to car sickness, so every 3 blocks we drove, I was like, whoa, pull over, pull over. And we were still like an hour away from our house, and we had to get on the highway, and he's like, how are we gonna get home when you're like this? I hadn't eaten anything that day, so there was nothing there for me to puke. And I was like, okay, this should be fine. I should be fine. Let's get on the highway. And we got on the highway, and like a few minutes after, I just start vomiting. Also, we had gotten like the prescription medicine on the way, and so I had this like paper bag from the pharmacy, you know, the like little paper bags they give you to put the medicine in. So I like was holding that to be like, just in case, I have this teeny tiny flimsy paper barf bag, and I was holding it, and I like puked into that, but like it instantly disintegrated from the stomach acid. And then it was just like dripping on the like the mat and the seat, and I was just like, I'm so sorry, as I like continued puking. And I was like, when we get home, I promise I'll clean it up. And then when we got home, I was obviously like, I was like, never mind, I can't clean it up because I have a broken leg. And he was like, it's fine, I'll clean it up. And I felt so bad. He's such a good partner. He like cleaned up my puke and everything. So that week, I like was able to get an appointment with an orthopedic doctor, and she saw my leg, heard the story, saw the x-rays they took at the ER, and she requested more x-rays and a CT scan. And then she was like, we definitely need surgery. And she explained that like there were 2 breaks, one in the fibula and one in the tibia. Luckily they were simple breaks, but she was explaining how like, say this is like your bone and this is the break here. If it like heals like even just like a little bit off like that, like that's significantly less weight that bone can now bear. And I was like, that sounds freaky, please fix it. And so she was like, we're gonna need surgery. We scheduled it for like a week out because she wanted the swelling to go down. And actually that weekend, after I saw my doctor, I actually like tripped in my crutches, and I like fell and I put weight on the foot, and it hurt so bad. And I think like actually my the splint that I had like got bent a little bit because it felt really uncomfortable ever since. Like it felt like there was something pinching my leg, and I was just so freaked out. I was like, I really messed it up. I'm pretty sure I messed it up even more. But it was fine. So then the day of surgery comes around. I had the first slot, which was 7:30 in the morning, and I had to come in at 6 a.m. The worst part, I think, was actually just like getting like the nerve block, the local anesthetic in the leg. Like that really hurt because the needle's pretty big, and then I also got an IV in my hand. Oh, the other funny thing was when they were carrying me to the surgery room, it was like 2 people on the surgery team, and at one point one of the women was like, oh, I kind of miss Dr. X. And the other woman was like, what? You miss Dr. X? She was such a They were talking about how Dr. X left for this other school and was now like doing surgery there, and she was like, oh, I'm so glad she left. And I was just like, oh my gosh, should they really be telling me this? And I'm pretty sure they thought like, because I was going under, like I would forget it, but clearly I still remember. And that was the last conversation I remember, because after that I just like blacked out, and I woke up, the surgery was 2 hours and they said the recovery was 2 hours and then I could go home. I was super out of it. My partner was allowed to come in after the surgery. They had more local anesthetic, like an IV that I could take home. It was in this little pouch, and it's this balloon that like gets smaller as the liquid goes into you so that the pressure is constant, and it, like a normal IV, it uses gravity to like drip down into you. But if I'm carrying it around, I'm lying down, like there's not that constant gravity, so they actually use a balloon that like has that constant pressure. And then I also was prescribed a bunch of opiates, which I was kind of freaked out by, but I was like, I'm gonna take this, like I don't want to feel pain in the leg. They gave me like basically like 5 different pills to take, and I was also supposed to take the opiate every 3 hours, which meant that I had to wake up at a minimum every 3 hours. And a lot of times it was like I would get an hour of sleep and then wake up to take a pill, and then go back to sleep and wake up and take another pill. But the opiate like makes you really sleepy, so I didn't have any trouble going back to sleep for an hour. And then I also slept like throughout the entire day basically. And so I got a lot of sleep for 4 days, including the day of surgery. I took opiates for 4 days and I basically slept for 4 days straight. And it also makes you nauseous, similar to the morphine. And so I like didn't have much of an appetite. I like forced myself to eat, but I lost a lot of weight, also a lot of muscle during those 4 days. I also took out the IV. You can take it out yourself, and they said just throw it away in the trash. After that, I felt like a lot better, which is how I'm like talking to you right now, like with makeup and like everything, because otherwise I was like dead in bed. And then I also got back to work. I work from home luckily, so I just set up in the dining table with my leg propped up, elevated and everything. I wanted to tell this story because I actually want to document my recovery process, going through like recovery, through physical therapy, and then eventually document everything I do after too. Going back to climbing, how much worse I get when I come back. I hope that this is helpful in some way. I also feel like I haven't seen a ton of climbers specifically talking about their recovery process for this. So I wanted to document it, partly for myself, because this to me is kind of like a big life event, but also hopefully it'll be helpful for someone else out there. So that's it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed hearing about this harrowing experience that I had. Bye!